This is RiverTalks with Jonathan Brush, President and CEO of Unbound.
I'm going to make an assertion that's going to sound on its face like it's an opinion, a slightly crazy opinion at that. But I'm going to suggest to you that it's a fact, and it's a fact that is as true as gravity. But it's a one that doesn't initially sound like it. So here's the assertion: people are not rational actors. In fact, people are never rational actors, and people, by and large, for the most part, never make logical decisions. And that any logic that's applied comes after emotion. Now, most people hear that say, that sounds crazy. There's all kinds of people that make wise decisions, that act rationally, that take facts into account. And here's my argument to that. If that is true, then everybody in the United States of America would drive a Toyota Corolla. In other words, if we're talking about rational, fact based thinking, then a Toyota Corolla has the price point, the economy, the size, the reliability to make it the perfect rational transportation for the vast majority of people that live in the United States of America. And yet, while the Toyota Corolla is a good selling car, you can look around and you can see a whole lot of irrational exceptions. How many people do you know in the suburbs that drive a really large full size truck? And how often do they need all the horsepower, all the clearance, all the four-wheel drive capability, and all the cargo capacity? How many people do you know that live in the suburbs or even in an apartment and drive a Jeep Wrangler? How many of those people routinely take that Jeep Wrangler off-road or need to take that Jeep Wrangler off-road? How many people do you know that drive a high-end luxury sedan or a high-end sports car? Do they need the capability to drive 120 miles per hour? Is it even legal to drive 120 miles per hour on any of the roads close to you? And the answer to all of those questions are no. None of those things are rational. And yet, there's a multi-billion-dollar industry built on producing and making those kinds of cars, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. People are not rational actors. They act primarily on emotion. They make emotional decisions, and then they use facts to justify those decisions. Now, I'm not so sure that I'm arguing. I be clear about this. I'm not arguing that that's a bad thing necessarily. I think that there's a important realization of how we are created and how we are made. And I think, in fact, that how we are created and how we are made is really relevant to this entire discussion. If you have a purely materialistic worldview and you think that we are here through a process of evolutionary steps, then you are going to be forced to decide and to think that people make, by and large, rational decisions, that we would typically make decisions that would maximize pleasure and reduce pain, and that would ensure our survival. And yet you can look throughout all of history and see that that's not the case. If you come from, say, a Christian worldview, this would make a lot of sense. You would even say that God didn't communicate to his people in a series of math formulas. He communicated to his people through a series of stories, a book that's a huge collection of stories that spans multiple years and spends a lot of time talking about emotions and people who do irrational things, that sin itself is an irrational act, and that ultimately people don't act primarily with logic. Now, that is not to say that facts are not important. That is not to say that it's not important for us to try to make rational decisions at various points. It is to say that if you're going to be influential, if you're going to pay attention, if you want to know how the world really works, if you want to be able to influence people, if you want to help other people, you're going to have to start with this realization: people don't act rationally, and that includes you. And knowing that one simple little truth will have a massive impact on how you communicate and deal with other people, and how you check yourself and think about your own motives for what you're doing and why you're doing it.